Turn self-hate to love, that's my pitch. Take some advice from a loving bitch. Hey, welcome to episode 19 of Advice from a Loving Bitch. I'm Rythea Lee, I'm your host, and I'm happy to say I've become more loving and more bitchy through making this show. I contracted to do 20 episodes of this show through GoFundMe. I raised the funds. You all supported me. I've been so touched. It's been successful. And so I guess it's about to end. You know, this is 19, then there's 20. As far as I know, it could stop there. So before it ends, I want to do an episode that tackles a subject that's been my area of activism and art for 22 years, and that is ending childhood sexual abuse. That is not a fun subject, and yet it is related to self-hatred and it is related to self-love. So it must be done, and this is my venue, so thank you for staying tuned. I'm not doing it alone. I have two incredible, inspiring guests. Aishah Shahidah Simmons and Donna Jenson, who are both friends of mine, and they're both really making a difference around this issue. I want to tell you why I'm loving. I'm loving because I have spent all these years undoing denial. It's been this complex project that has freed me into who I am. And it's been the hardest work ever, and I'm a bitch because I now help other people come out of denial, and nobody wants that. I mean, who wants to come out of denial? You know what's underneath that is incredible amounts of pain. So sometimes being in this role is not glamorous. Okay, so the structure is that Aishah lives in Philly, so she couldn't come here and film with me, so we're each filming our own segments, me, Donna, and Aishah, and we're answering the same questions about healing and ending childhood sexual abuse. Okay, Aishah Shahidah Simmons is a self-defined black feminist, lesbian, incest, and rape survivor. She's an award-winning documentary filmmaker and creator of No, the Rape documentary. She's also a visiting scholar at the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Policy and Practice, and a Just Beginnings Collaborative Fellow, where she created and launched the multimedia campaign Love with Accountability. Donna Jenson. In 2009, Donna founded Time to Tell, an organization with a mission to spark stories from lives affected by incest and sexual abuse to be told and heard. She wrote and performed her one-woman play, What She Knows, One Woman's Way Through Incest to Joy, which is based on her own life experience of surviving incest and what she did to make her life worth living. Her new book, Healing My Life from Incest to Joy, is going to be released by Levelers Press in 2017. The first question that we're all answering is, what's a glimpse of your story that's worth telling?
One thing that saved me was seeing my mother as a savior, as the good one, as the tender one, and my dad was the bad guy. And then when I disclosed to the family, my father denied it. My brother decided that I was lying and making false accusations, and so he stopped talking to me and wouldn't let me have anything to do with his children. When my brother abandoned me, my mother wouldn't do anything about it. She wouldn't say anything to him. She said, I'm so afraid that your brother won't let me have access to the children either. And it dawned on me that she wasn't protecting me, and in fact, she had never protected me.
Question 1. There is no other event that has profoundly shaped my life and defined my life's work than my being molested over a period of 2 years by my paternal step-grandfather. I was 10 years old when it began, and it ended when I was 12, and this was in 1979 to 1981. I told my parents what happened, and unfortunately, they didn't do anything, nor did they take me out of the situation. I developed migraine headaches and a food addiction. Thankfully, through 25 years of work with a licensed clinical Black feminist psychologist, over 2 decades work in the anti-violence movement, and a 14-year practice of Vipassana meditation as taught by Essen Goenka, I developed tools that are enabling me to move forward on the journey.
I was sexually abused by my parents for my whole childhood. And it was so extreme and so violent that I've been having flashbacks for 22 years. And it's so similar to being a war veteran as far as I understand it. It's come back in pieces, in chunks, through traumatic symptoms and body memories, and it's just it's just been unbelievably hard. And it's not over. It doesn't end for me. Like, there's so much trauma that I'm going to be remembering probably for the rest of my life.
As recently as September 2016, my mother finally came face to face with the reality that she nor my father protected me, and how they both encouraged me to engage with and love my grandfather without his ever being held accountable for the unspeakable acts that he committed against me as a child. This revelation, awakening that my mother had, has marked a profound seismic shift in her and my interaction and energy. We cannot undo what was not done for 37 years. There's no way that we can do it. But what we are doing is paying it forward. She has written about how she did not protect me. She has written about the need for parents to take responsibility for not protecting their children. She's spoken about it publicly. And this has been very profound, completely unexpected after many years of trying to get her and my father to see. It was an unexpected gift.
The next question is, what is your activism on this subject at this point in your life?
So I call myself an artist activist. There are three main things I do. One is I wrote a one-woman show. It's called What She Knows, One Woman's Way Through Incest to Joy. It's maybe the first incest musical because I have an accompanist, a guitarist named John Sheldon, who's fantastic. And we perform at colleges, conferences, communities, and it's very exciting. I love doing the play. The second thing is I run workshops for survivors, writing workshops, writing and mindfulness workshops, so that they can work at finding their voice and hearing each other's voices. And the third thing I'm doing is I've written a book. It's coming out in the fall of 2017.
I want to say that I really think that just facing childhood sexual abuse, just dealing with the fact that it happened, is activism. So just shifting your own consciousness and having the feelings and the recovery is helping the world, the planet, the people in your life. It is activism. Getting sober, around this subject is activism. So I would say that's my major source of activism, is just facing it. And then I wrote a book called Trauma into Truth, which is on Amazon, which really healed me writing it, and it has helped a lot of people. And I tried to write a non-traumatizing book about trauma. I'm a musician. I made a CD, and a lot of the songs are about healing abuse. And I'm a therapist, and I have been for at least 20 years. And I work with mostly survivors of sexual abuse, but I work with people with all kinds of trauma. And I love it. I love it. I love being that person for people where they feel safe to wake up to whatever it is that they live through. It's a profound honor. And I stopped the abuse. I have a daughter, and she will never be abused. And I would say that's my greatest achievement.
Through a 2-year Just Beginnings collaborative fellowship, I created, designed, and launched #Love with Accountability, a multimedia campaign created for child sexual abuse and incest survivors of African descent to speak out in solidarity to share our testimonies and solutions for accountability in response to the violence done to us within our families. Hashtag Love with Accountability is a continuation of the work that I began with my feature-length film, No, the Rape Documentary.
There was a part of me that said, no, he's not going to take that from you. He is not going to make you respond to something you don't want.
Which looks at rape and sexual violence in adult communities of African descent. I believe that adult rape and other forms of adult sexual violence are branches and leaves of the huge tree whose root is child sexual abuse. So I began with cutting and trimming the leaves and the branches to now focusing on pulling up the roots.
The next question is, what do you find most challenging about the level of denial you encounter when trying to confront incest personally and in our world?
I am unequivocal in my belief that the deep denial around child sexual abuse and incest is entrenched and deeply connected to protecting the family. All of us are taught from birth that we must protect the family at all costs. Unfortunately, what that usually means is protecting the harm doer or perpetrator and bystander. We are taught that if we love the family, we would not tell. And I believe it is precisely because we love the family that we must tell, that we must break the silence. We must break the cycles of violence. There are too many examples of many members in one generation, let alone across generations, being harmed often by the same person. And a lot of that is connected to the fact that the silence wasn't broken the first time, or if it was broken, no one did anything about it.
Personally, the hardest part is the self-blame. The child's perspective that there's something terribly, terribly wrong with them, with me. There was something horribly, horribly wrong with me, that this could have happened to me. Ugh, the shame, the shame. That's the hardest part. That's why making this episode sucks. And in terms of our world, you know what I've been thinking about? Like, we talk about epidemics, in the news, and this past election, besides being the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my lifetime on a government level, I just wonder if there's ever going to be a lifetime where in a debate people talk about the epidemic of incest. It's a fucking epidemic.
So I was at a dinner at a very prominent women's college. I was at the president's house for a very fancy dinner, and I was seated at this round table, and to my right was the provost of the college, a woman, and to my left was the woman who was dean of students. So, very smart, hip women. But anyway, so we're having this three-way conversation, and one of them says, "So what is it you're working on right now?" And I thought, well, do I tell them leadership or do I tell them about my book? So I said, well, I'm in the midst of writing a book called Healing My Life from Incest to Joy. And literally, they were both looking at me, and they both turned at the same time, without any comment, and struck up a conversation with the person on the other side of them.
The next question is, can you say anything about joy? Have you noticed that I am an incredibly naturally joyful person? Because I have. How it is that my joy is still intact is a miracle. It's a miracle! It's a miracle! I forgot to say when I was talking about activism that I'm a performer. I love performing because I get to be my big, crazy, weird, truthful self. And it's allowed. And that brings me great joy.
Joy is necessary, and I believe it is our birthright. And we spend a lot of our lives trying to locate the joy, trying to cultivate the joy, and trying to hold on to it. And what I've learned is that my joy can't be dependent upon what is going on outside. Of course, it is impacted by that, but I keep trying to tap in to my inner source to find that joy.
So I love talking about joy. I mean, it's in the title of my book for good reason, because I think joy is the payoff. Because of all the healing work I did. And it's no fun. I'm not going to say it is. It's hard work and it's painful, and you feel old stuff that you haven't felt in a long time. You know, it's no fun. But when I do it, it's like this weight gets lifted off my voice and my creativity and my capacity to embrace life. So it's cool.
The last question is, how does self-hatred relate to childhood sexual abuse? Being molested, groomed, or raped by someone you trust and love and are completely reliant on when you're a child is one of the most horrific things that I could possibly think of. It's so bad, and yet it's having to hold the secret, which most children have to, that creates this intense self-hatred. That's what creates it, is the silencing. The silencing is such a horrendous part of the whole thing. And in our culture, people who speak out are attacked. I mean, adult people who try to speak out about what happened to them get just raked through the coals. So it's still in place in our world, in our culture, every damn day. How do you love yourself in the face of that when you have lived through this and you have just been stuffed with pain and lies that have nothing to do with you? That's what this whole show is partly about. It's really about externalizing what somebody else gave you and getting that it's not you.
Question 5, hallelujah. Oh my God, this has been so hard. I believe there's a direct correlation between self-hatred and child sexual abuse. And violence is done to us against our will, often by someone that we know, that we trust, that we may even love. And rather than kind of pinpoint that, those feelings of anger and rage towards the person, I believe that many of us turn that anger and rage towards ourselves, and emotionally, physically, psychically, mentally. I vividly remember hating myself, hating my body, hating everything, just wanting to disappear, because just thinking maybe if I could disappear, the violence would stop. I remember, beginning to develop with breast and just wanting it all to disappear. My migraines began during that time, and I definitely believe it's because I couldn't yell. I couldn't verbally yell, so my body was screaming, and it screamed loudly through the migraines.
So every time my father raped me, he would say, from the age of 8, he would say, "You tell anyone and I'll kill you." So, hence it took a long time to tell. But what's most important about that is, here's this person that's like one of the most prominent people in my life who's doing this horrible stuff to me. And basically the message I'm getting is that I'm hateful. There's something terribly wrong with me. I'm being incredibly mistreated. So that must be so.
I have a choreo poem called A State of Rage that I wrote in 1994, and it has served as a roadmap for my film No, the Rape documentary, but it has also served as a roadmap for my life. And I want to close with the closing stanza that is said about 5 or 6 times. Rage, meditation, action, healing. Rage, meditation, action, healing. rage, meditation, action, healing. Ashe.
Your assignment. Number 1, I want you to do a free write with the prompt, I need my denial because ... And then just write. Don't think about it. Write. Again, when you run out of things to say, just say, I need my denial because ... And just get to know your denial in a loving, compassionate way. Number 2, I'm going to put a reading list in the comment section, in the notes section below this episode, and I'd like you to pick a book and read about this subject. Whether you're a survivor or not, we all need to wake the fuck up around what's happening. So hope you'll pick a book. They're great books. I'm putting my favorite ones. I hope you'll read one, including the work that Donna and Aishah are doing. Why don't you check that out? Okay, thank you so much for joining us.